Thank you for joining us today. We have another first in the long series of firsts in the one and only Brattleboro. The community is about ready to begin town-wide residential voluntary compost pickup. And with me to talk about that very subject are two people who know a lot about compost because it's their job. KAHLER is the coordinator that has started with the town of Brattleboro and now is under the employ of the town's trash hauler, Triple T Trucking. Good to see you, Moss.
Well, good to see you, Tim.
And also someone who has, over the years, really gotten immersed in the trash business in Brattleboro. Peter GASKILL is with Triple T Trucking. Thank you as well, Peter.
Sure, thank you.
Now, we all had talked about different ways of reducing the waste stream, and really, it all comes down to money, does it not?
Well, that's the benefit, amongst many other benefits of reducing the waste stream. It costs $105 a ton to put trash into a landfill or an incinerator, and there's a lot of tons that get disposed. And so if we can reduce the tonnage, we directly save the taxpayer money.
And now we're in a situation where the only available landfill in the state of Vermont is at the other end of the state in Coventry. Peter, some of these hauling costs must get outrageous after a while, plus tipping fees.
Sure. I mean, the further you have to bring material, the greater the cost. And so obviously that is a big part of what's occurring. And so if we have material that we can process right here in our community, the compost that we collect, those transportation costs are saved right off the bat.
For purposes of explanation, gentlemen, what do you consider compost? Let's define the term right off.
Well, compost would be organic material, which can be broken down biologically, and many people have backyard compost piles where they take their food scraps and put them there, and they might mix them with their leaves or their grass clippings and turn it every once in a while, and it's almost magical over a period of time. What goes from food scraps, often very sort of yucky and slimy, over a period of time turns into what looks like and is very nutrient-rich soil, which can be put on your garden or lawn or whatever. So compost is the result of a biologic breakdown of organic material.
And, you know, I have a backyard composter at my home, and, you know, maybe I'm not doing it right. I just put it in and it kind of sits there. How does this process work with a commercial compost operation? Because you're adding additional material, and you've got a whole town of material rather than just a little bit that a couple might do on their own.
Sure. A commercial compost facility is managed in great more detail than your backyard compost. The makeup of the material, you have bulking agents, you'll turn the material to get oxygen to create more heat, and that heat is what breaks down the pathogens and the unwanted different types of organisms that live in the compost, and finally also break the material down. So it's much more managed to be effective at making a resource out of the material.
And I'm surprised of the breadth and depth of the materials that you can put in a commercial compost operation. I mean, it's not just coffee grounds or your banana peels. It's really almost everything that you would before end up putting in the trash.
Chicken bones, dairy products, cheese, meat, all those items can go back into the commercial compost collection where it's really not appropriate in your backyard compost.
Several other items that would not go typically in your backyard compost that can go in the curbside compost include the greasy pizza board tray. Any kind of soiled paper, if it gets grease or food on it, can go in the curbside compost. The paper egg cartons can go in, sugar and flour bags, the milk and juice cartons that you often, people get milk in them, and all we ask is that people tear that little plastic spout out because we don't want any plastics into the curbside compost. Small wooden boxes like you might get in a clementine box can go in. Pet waste is a very big one. From having ridden on the trash truck a number of times, I know very well firsthand that kitty litter is extremely heavy, and that can go into the curbside compost. And some people worry about whether they sound, oh, you know, cat litter and also dog waste can be taken, and they wonder whether the finished product is safe to use on their gardens. But as Peter was explaining, in a commercial compost facility, the temperatures get up quite high. They get up to 160 degrees and more. And that really breaks down the material, and it kills any of the pathogens. So the finished product is safe to use in your garden.
The average homeowner would look at you and say, what do I do with it, and how's it going to be picked up?
I think a lot of people, when they haven't composted in their backyard, one of their initial reactions is, this is going to stink, you know, taking my food scraps and collecting them. But people who are not current backyard composters, what do they do with their food scraps now? They take them and they put them in their trash along with their potato chip bags and their worn out household item, a t-shirt that's gone out, or your potato chip bag, or all the other things. And your food scraps are mixed in with that trash. And everybody's had the experience of the trash can really start smelling. But when you separate your food scraps for curbside compost, you're isolating them from the rest of your trash, and you're handling them separately. And typically people have a small container, it might be 1 or 2 gallons, on their kitchen counter or under the kitchen counter in a cabinet. And they put their food scraps in there. And because it's a small container, it only takes maybe a day or 2 or 3 to fill up. And then you just take it out and you put it into your curbside cart. And you take your curbside cart out once a week. It's going to be the same day that your trash and recyclables are picked up right now. In fact, one great benefit of the curbside program is recycling, which has been picked up every other week in Brattleboro, which confuses some people, and I get confused sometimes too. I can't remember, is this my week or not? But from here on out, once this program starts up shortly, trash, recycling, and compost will all be picked up every single week.
I've got to sidetrack a bit because I'm thinking those little plastic single-serve coffee cups, they contain something organic that you put in the composter, but what do you do with the plastic stuff?
The plastic has to go into trash. The only plastic that's recyclable are numbers 1 through 7. They have to have the little recycling arrow with a number stamped in the middle of it. And the waste district at their MRF is now collecting plastics stamped with recyclables 1 through 7. But if you have any kind of piece of plastic that does not have a recycling number stamped on it, then there's no question at all, it's a trash item.
You've had a chance to test this out. Take us through that process. You came up with some volunteers who wanted to try this, and of course one of the biggest volunteers was somebody who actually was on your staff, Peter, Andre, who was doing the pickup. So how did all this come together, and were there any fits and starts in figuring out what can be done and what can't be done?
Andre has been our recycling driver for quite some time for the town, and he's done a really wonderful job. He's enthusiastic. He cares about how he provides his service and how he helps everybody out. And so he was a natural fit to help with the pilot project for collecting the organics. And the recycling truck is the key component to the puzzle of how we wanted to do the collection. Right now we pick up recyclables, the fiber in one compartment in the truck, and containers, glass, plastic, and tin and aluminum in another compartment. And the trucks can actually have another divider added so you can pick up a third commodity. And that's what we really wanted to zero in on with the pilot program, is if we could do the compostable waste in the recycling truck and still can maintain the recyclables in their respective compartments. Andre, we did that. We found that it answered a lot of our questions, that indeed we could do that, and the pilot was very good at discovering that. We found that we could get to the stops and be time efficient, and so a lot of the little details that we weren't really sure we were able to iron out. I'm sure there'll be other things when we go townwide, but a lot of that stuff was answered in a very positive manner. And it's hoped that we'll get more recyclables collected from what's being collected now, when folks have to hold it for 2 weeks.
The pilot also showed that people had very little difficulty in learning how to sort and get the proper organics and compostables into their cart. I expect by the end of summer we'll have probably around 900 people participating. And we're finding about 97% of those have an email address, and it makes it very, very easy to communicate with these people. When they have questions, I can answer them almost the same day, or certainly within 24 hours. If anybody has a question, email is a good way to go.
You know, we probably ought to mention a couple of times how you can sign up if you are a Brattleboro homeowner that's on residential pickup.
The best way to sign up is if you have a computer or access to a computer. If you don't have one, you could go down to the town library. But if you have a computer, go to the town website, which is www.brattleboro.org. That's www.brattleboro.org. And on the right-hand side of the home page, you'll see it plain as day, Curbside Compost Sign Up. Also, that is a great location to go find answers to many of your questions. There's going to be a lot of information there, and it's sort of going to be the clearinghouse and gathering place for information on the curbside program. If you don't have a computer or access to one, you can call the town at 251-8103. It's 251-8103. Callista will take your call and take down your information. All we need is your name, your street address and number, a phone number, though there's probably not likely going to be a need that we need to call you, but it's handy to have that information. And if you have an email address, it's great to have your email address, because that way we can communicate with you easily. The town has ordered curbside carts. We have ordered 2 sizes. The size we're going to hand out to most people is a 13-gallon Orbis cart, and that will be suitable for families easily up to 3 people, and perhaps 4 people can have enough capacity in the 13-gallon Orbis. For families with 4 or certainly 5 members or greater, we have a larger cart. It's a 21-gallon cart made by IPL. Both carts have locking lids. During the pilot, we had absolutely no problems with animals getting into them and spreading around. In fact, I think there's a lot more problem with the typical trash that has food mingled in with it, put out in the curb, that's put out in a plastic bag or an open garbage can. Dogs, skunks, raccoons often get into that. But these containers that the town is giving out are very sturdy. We are charging $7 for the 13-gallon cart and $10 for the 21-gallon cart, and that's about 1/3 of the retail price. If people have their own container that they feel is suitable, and I'll give the requirements, they are welcome to use their own container. They don't have to use the town-provided cart. But if you do supply your own container, it must be a rigid container, and it must have a tight-fitting lid. That lid has to be easily removed by the driver when he collects the compost each week. We do not want compost put out to the curb in a paper bag or a compostable bag or in your in-house kitchen container. It really needs to be in a container that's made for the curbside.
Really some health and safety issues here, both for the driver, for the people picking it up, and certainly for the neighborhood where this can would be, because of the possibility of vermin getting into the bags.
Yeah, these containers, as I mentioned, they've got, both of them have very easy to open yet very secure latches, and I think even if an animal knocked them over, the lid would not spring open. Now, if you have bear problems,
we haven't seen many bears, except maybe in some of the outlying areas, and people there would know what to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's take this a step further. Once it leaves the truck, where is it going and what's being done with it?
We'll bring the recyclables and the compost up to the Wyndham Solid Waste Management Facility on Old Ferry Road. We'll drop off the recyclables as they have been for the last 17, 18 years, and then across their yard, they have a pilot program established for taking the organics and managing them there. So it'll all be in one spot. We'll be able to empty the truck.
Will they be turning this into compost, or is there a possibility at some point that they might use some of this to produce something which could generate electricity?
There's certainly hopes. Yeah, there's a critical mass required of commercial compost to be collected. It seems the bar gets lowered as technology improves, and it seems anywhere from 5 to 10 tons a day of material is needed to establish a program where the methane will be captured in a digester and create electricity. I certainly have no doubt that the district would like to get to that point, but this is a very beginning of a program that needs to prove itself, and then we need to, the program and other collections need to, infrastructure need to be developed to get to that point. So it's the very beginning stage of that. Hopefully, essentially in a few years that'll get there.
And one thing I want to stress, in the pilot, some people felt, oh, my curbside container is only half full, so I'll wait another week before I put it out. Well, that's just another week for the biologic activity to start happening inside your curbside container. Another reason why your curbside container should be kept in a shady, cool spot. You can imagine that if you kept that container in the bright sun and it's full of food scraps, that you're going to be baking something, and it's not going to be too pleasant what comes out. So you really should put it out every week, and that way you don't have those issues.
This is something that is cutting edge, obviously. First in Vermont or first in New England?
I believe it's the first in New England to do curbside. There are certainly a lot of communities that might be collecting compost at a central facility, as we do now. People can take their organics to the Project Cow container. There are two in Brattleboro. One is on Fairground Road by the recycling containers by the high school, and the other is at the MRF on Old Ferry Road. And I encourage people who live in larger apartment buildings and who cannot avail themselves of this service because Brattleboro does not pick up curbside trash, recycling, and now organics at those buildings with 5 or more units. But that does not mean that you can't separate these items out of your own personal waste stream and take them to one of the cow containers. But I do believe Brattleboro is the first community in Vermont, and I believe, Peter may know, in New England that's going to have a curbside pickup. I
go back again to the dollar sign. Trash is an expensive business, and in Brattleboro, this could end up saving money.
Oh, the savings is very direct. Once again, it's about a 200-mile round trip. Costs $105 a ton to dispose of that in a landfill. And that's not the only problem with that, driving at that distance and the diesel fuel used, but also once organics are buried in a landfill, methane's produced, which is a greenhouse gas that we want to try to reduce. But now we're going to be driving at about a mile or a mile and a half.
A few miles across town. Yep.
A few miles compared to over 200 miles. And that's easy to see. That's a great benefit.
So the bottom line here is it all comes together, recycle and compost. It all ends up reducing the waste stream.
It does. And I guarantee anybody who has not done this curbside recycling, where you can take not only your typical backyard compost materials, but also the other items we mentioned, which I don't think we mentioned, the paper towels, cups, plates, napkins, your tissues from your bathroom wastebasket, the kitty litter, the pizza tray, and all the other things we mentioned. When you take all those things out of your household waste stream, what you are left with is the liner to your cereal box, your potato chip bag, the plastic sandwich type bag. It's all sorts of flimsy plastics. And in my household, I have to say I've weighed it many times and over a period of a couple years. And we have a household of 3, and our weekly trash that we put out weighs about 3 to 4 pounds. And it's absolutely amazing. I challenge anybody to do it and not be amazed by the difference it makes in their household waste stream.
I'm impressed by all this. You obviously have put in countless hours in making sure this can work. Really is a way of making sure that this is not a leap of faith. It's proven and something that can work for this community.
It is proven. The pilot has proven it, and I think 10, 15, 20 years from now, composting is absolutely going to be second nature.
So run down how people can sign up for the voluntary program again, and how can they get their questions about what should I do with this stuff answered.
If you go to www.brattleboro.org, www.brattleboro.org, or you can just search Town of Brattleboro, it'll probably be the first in the search results. There's also a Facebook page. That one is Brattleboro Recycles. And so I encourage you, if you have a Facebook account, to go to Brattleboro Recycles, like our page. There's also a ton of information. Deb Holman has been helping me manage that site, and we've been putting on a question a day and the answer to it, and it's generating a lot of hits there on the Facebook page.
Well, congratulations to you both, and best of luck as this moves forward.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
You are very welcome, and in fact, this is where you come in. Again, go on to brattleboro.org if you're a Brattleboro homeowner on residential pickup, and sign up for the voluntary compost pickup program. This is Tim Johnson. Thank you for watching.